Welcome to our pod, and by that I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. And we are coming along the final curve of the final Murderbot Diaries book in our Murderbot Diaries. I know so far there is one coming out in November, which we will be covering. But today we will be covering the plot of Fugitive Telemetry. Yes. So, but before we get into the plot of this novel, Laura, what are you reading, watching, and or enjoying?
So I watched Megan on Peacock.
Oh, scary, spooky, scary.
It was not that scary, honestly.
Okay.
At least I didn't think it was that scary.
Okay.
Unless maybe you're really scared of Chucky type things. I did not think it was that scary. I watched it because they were talking about it on the Bechdel Cast a lot.
Okay.
So then I felt social pressure no, not really. They just talked about it so much that I was like, oh, is this a good movie? It was not my type of movie. I thought it was pretty dumb. But also I think that is sometimes something that they hype up a lot is a dumb movie.
Oh yeah. I think Megan also gets like the LA treatment of like lots of people in LA like that movie, like the campiness of it.
Did you watch it?
I didn't watch it, but I listened to a podcast called Keep It. And it's hosted by,
I think it was that campy.
Well, it was hosted by Lucifer Tell, and like he talked about the trailer for the movie. And he's like, who did the animation for that doll? Because the way she looks at people like incredulously, like she's always just like giving looks at people like, I can't believe you just said that. And so like, I think that's where LA people were like very involved with the like, oh my gosh, it's so funny. She looks like this. And then like it spirals out of that.
Yeah, I guess I just did not think it was a good movie. People are welcome to watch it and disagree with me, but I think just maybe not my type of movie. I don't know. I didn't think it was that scary. I really like the looks that she gives are because she's developed so much sentience that she knows better than everyone else, basically. And it's just a dumb movie. I did not enjoy it, and I wasted an hour and a half watching it. So but yeah, I haven't really been watching anything else that I can think of. Just still binging Parks and Rec. Nothing new there. I finished Goodbye to the Sun by Jonathan Nevair, review to come. I sent you a review that will go up on the blog at some point. It was really good. I think if you enjoy things along the lines of Andor or Book of Boba Fett, there's themes in that. Even the Murderbot Diaries, that you would enjoy the Windtide series by Jonathan Nevair, because there's these themes of colonialism and there's political intrigue, and it's just a really good book. And I think it hit me at the right time. I'm in my sci-fi era, but I think it was really well written and I just really enjoyed it. So thank you for writing it, Jonathan. And then I started reading The Delve by Dan Fitzgerald. And this is a fantasy novel. It's pretty fast paced so far. I'm 30% in. I'm probably going to finish it this week. Pretty fast paced. It's really keeping my attention and I'm flying through it really, because I started reading it the other day on a car trip and got pretty far. So
good.
Updates to come on that.
Yay.
Hannah, what have you been reading and watching?
Okay, so on things that are bad, I started this I started this documentary series that I was like kind of looking for something to watch, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll turn this on like in the background, it's fine. And it's called it's on Hulu, but it's called like The Lesson is Murder. And it's honestly terrible. Like,
I do not enjoy Hulu documentaries. I don't know why, but like they don't vibe with my brain. They're like kind of older style, and they remind me of very much a 90s thing.
Okay, but so I would say that like you're spot on, but also it's a little bit different with this particular series. Because I started it and they kind of wanted to make their own. It feels like they wanted to make their own 60 Minutes, you know how 60 Minutes
Mhm.
does like a deep dive into one criminal person per episode.
That's
and it's like,
how many of the books are.
okay. So like they did this, but they literally like also wanted it to be like real life, I would say like Criminal Minds or Bones,
Okay.
where like the main person who's leading the documentary or narrating it, like, oh, this is what we're going to do next, is this criminologist who employs like these students.
Mhm.
And like the students have different types of like skill sets, and they're analyzing like a murder to see why it happened and why it took place.
Mhm.
But like, here's the thing, real life is a lot more boring than TV shows. Like TV shows write characters that overlap, that have different viewpoints to like have interesting topics of
Mhm.
conversation. When it happens on a documentary series, I'm always like, that's not how real life usually is. Like you don't really have someone who's like, I'm the skeptic. Like that's not, and that's literally one of the things like they
You do
show
in the dramatizations.
yeah, they show like someone's face and they're like, he's the skeptic. And I'm like, no, he's not. He is employed by this documentary to do
I
a
love
job. Like, I got so mad when I saw that. And I was like, you've got to be effing kidding me that they think that they could like make a Bones style group
That's
of
funny.
ragtag people for this documentary about like 60 Minutes like murder. And so each episode is, I believe, a different murder because it's like 60 Minutes style.
Mhm.
And the first episode literally was in Tyler, Texas, which Laura knows I like lived there for
Yeah,
a
you
little
lived there for a
while.
while.
And it happened in 2017, like right after I left. And so
Mhm.
I was like, oh, this should be fascinating to me. And I had to stop the episode halfway through because I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing this. This is really bad. So I didn't finish the first episode.
Oh no.
So I did not enjoy that. And on the scale of things I did enjoy, Laura, I watched season 4 of You, and that was a
Oh.
blast. And I stayed up till 1 a.m. finishing it this
Interesting.
week. So I enjoyed You more than I watched that docuseries. And like, guys, a lot of times You, not that great of a show. I mean, I love it, but it's
one of those shows that I just know that it's going to be a train wreck and I enjoy it.
yeah. And like, I do like, I don't know. I've been a little bit more on You's side as of late because I'm like, honestly, like, it's just kind of like high concept murder mystery show. And honestly, like men get high concept whatever they want. So like
Right.
women should get a high concept murder mystery about like a psychopath.
Sure.
So I am on You's side, but I will say like Penn Badgley in the news has killed me recently. But I do like that he kind of just goes off the cuff. Like I recently saw an interview where he was talking about like, they were like, well, were you upset that Jenna Ortega wasn't in this season? Because spoiler, she's not. And he was like, no, she was really busy with like Wednesday. And he's like,
Mhm.
and if they want her back now, like they're gonna have to pay up. And I don't think they're willing to do that.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, and he's like, they're not taking my money. Like, we're about to hit a 5th season. Like, that's not coming out of my paycheck.
He's very like real with people, which I enjoy.
Yeah. And so he does seem like he's a little bit one of those people who's like, well, I'm an artiste. And it's like, Penn Badgley, you're in You, calm down. But
Yeah.
like, other than that, he does seem very real with people, which is good. But I watched You. I don't want to give any spoilers because like it is kind of a mystery show and like there's usually some stuff
Sure.
going on. I will say I very much like this season, except like I didn't guess the like inherent like gotcha of it all that the seasons usually have, but I knew what theme it would be in because it was weird enough where I was like, has anyone noticed like this is happening? And then later something happened and I was like, oh, okay.
Happening.
Which is like similar to like small spoilers for season 2 of You. You should have watched it by now. But like when Love, I remember watching it being like, man, Love just like isn't getting any of these warning signs. This is ridiculous. And then like the twist happens and I was like, oh, that's why.
Because she's a giant red flag.
Yeah, because she's a giant red flag. It's kind of like the Good Place of it all kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
This is the bad place.
Oh, this is the bad place. So I enjoyed that very much, that I was able to like get at a hint of something but not get the total
Sure.
stuff, because
I
that's
think it is
very
kind of
hard.
nice to watch a show, even if you've been able to predict things or like predicting things. I really enjoy watching a show and not knowing what's going to happen. So it is kind of a nice feeling to be like, they got me.
They did. They always get me, but I always know they're going to get me in like a very specific way. I can't explain it, but yeah. So I watched season 4. Someone said that like his love interest this season is the worst of the bunch. And
really?
I would argue that like, listen, everyone loved Guinevere Beck because she was the 1st, but that girl was as basic as white bread.
I didn't think she was that interesting, honestly.
She was more interesting in retrospect when you're watching it from the side of like, oh, like you usually see her in the first season through Joe's perspective. But then when you find out like how terrible Joe is and everything about Joe, if you rewatch that, you're just like, man, this poor woman is just like kind of basic and wants to live her life. Like,
yeah.
And she got thrown into this because of this man's obsession. Like that sucks. And she's more interesting from that perspective, but like, guys, she ain't interesting. I'll also say I was reading an article on this season and Greg Kinnear pops up and it's like, why is Greg Kinnear in this British era of you? Yeah, but he's like, it's all these British people. Then Greg Kinnear shows up and you're like, what is he doing here?
There's Greg Kinnear in all over the place.
Greg Kinnear and all over the place. And it's so funny when he shows up. So like, Laura, I want you to watch it just for you to like guess who Greg Kinnear will be. Because like, I didn't know it was going to be him. And it was hilarious.
Hope that he's the murderer, the like gotcha at the end, because that would be a shock.
It's always Greg Kinnear, guys.
So yeah, completely typecast as the main nice guy. So that would throw people for a loop if he was the murderer.
It's so funny. Greg Kinnear, man, why?
That's amazing.
Can you imagine? They were like, hey, Greg Kinnear, we have this character for you. You will be in London. You will just be an American in London, similar to this man named Joe, who is like a psychopath. And it's just like, cool, sign me up. I'll go to London.
I sometimes like think about why shows have to or feel the need to go to London.
Right.
And because it happens a lot in TV shows where they're like, we're taking a trip to London, or we're in London now, or there's just a season in London. And I'm just like, what is the need for this? Like, if the whole show is based in the UK, whatever. But if it's not, and it's like based somewhere else, and they have to do like a single episode or a few episodes or a season in London, it seems weird to me sometimes.
I do know that London is big on like arts. Like they have like taxpayer money pays for the arts. Like they don't. So maybe it's like you get a little bit of a... I haven't watched
you season 4, but for some reason I was thinking that it was Paris that they were going to.
Well, you're thinking it was Paris because he's going to Paris in the final episode of You season 3. And
that's why I'm thinking it, because
he winds up in London because apparently Paris was just too difficult to get rights to film in very much. So you're right, but it is in London, and I'm guessing
because I was trying to make the connection, like how do those things connect, but I guess it's probably just like you said, a rights situation.
It's a rights situation, and I'm guessing here, I'm going out on a limb, they didn't want to have to pay for French translation for an entire season.
Well, probably, yeah. And that's probably another reason that they move things to London, because then they can be exotic for Americans who cannot handle any kind of translation.
Oh my gosh, I need a translation for my Britishness.
Basically.
Yeah. So watch you when you want to, Laura, because it's not really a show you could like force yourself to watch.
Yeah, I feel like you got to be in the right mood for that one.
Yeah, I turned it on and just let it wash over me. Like nice.
Apparently I need to watch the 3rd season again though, because I'm not remembering a lot of things.
It's a hard one to remember. There were so many things that kept happening and I was like, really? That happened? And I was like, oh, okay. Like
I can distinctly recall the first 2 seasons, and I think it's because I enjoyed them.
Right.
But I think the 3rd season is when it started to become very complicated, and I was just like,
Yeah, and like a lot of people wanted the 3rd season to end a different way than it did, and I think
I mean, I also did too. I wanted love to be moving on, but
I know everyone did, because it would have been more interesting. But
exactly.
They've decided that like Joe has to be the titular character, so that stinks.
It would have been kind of a cool take though if it would have been like, oh, spoilers, love dies in the 3rd season, but if she would have like he thought she was dead, and then
Right.
walks away and it's like her eyes open like bah! Like the jump scare type thing of it all.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
And it ended like that.
Yeah, I will say like
Still out there.
they do have to keep ramping up every season, so it's interesting how they did it this season, because like last season it was the whole like they almost had to get away a little bit this season with the whole like obsession portion for, because like they've done that quite a bit. So
yeah,
there are certain things they did to.
It is a thing though that I'm wondering, like, I get it that it gets tiresome on a TV show to constantly see the obsession thing, but in real life this is probably something that would happen where he just becomes continually obsessed with different people and replaces one with the next because they can never meet his ridiculous obsession or high expectations for people.
Well, and that's the whole thing, is like the whole
Unrealistic
premise
expectations.
the whole premise of this is like Joe loves love, but he doesn't love actual love. He loves like beginnings of romance where he can obsessively look at one person and make them a fixture of what he thinks he needs to be fixed, and nothing will ever fix him. So it was interesting. So I enjoyed it. Watched all of it right in a row, just binged the whole thing. And it was a ton of fun to do. So yeah, can't wait for season 5, the final season of You Guys. So yeah, Laura, you and I can do a bonus episode next month on the first season of You.
The first season of You. Okay.
But so I did that. And then for reading, I read Paladin Unbound by Jeff Speet. The review is up on the website right now, so everyone go check that out. But I also really liked this book. I thought it had like a fun little twist at the beginning, so I can't get too deeply into the plot. But I thought he did a great job. It's very like action packed, which everyone knows Hannah does famously struggle with sometimes. So sometimes it was hard to keep characters straight for me personally. I don't think anyone else would ever have these problems, but we know that like Hannah's brain can't focus on a battle scene if she tried. So parts of even Martha Wells books gets to be too much for me sometimes. So, but I've greatly enjoyed it. I thought it was very like similar to the like D&D world, where like there's different campaigns they're going on. There's different like characters that are similar to the vein. Like I read a section to my boyfriend who is a dungeon master and has been since high school. And I was like, I just like read some dialogue and he's like, oh, we've got hags. And so I think that that's kind of fun that like people who play D&D get like a little bit of like a fun, little nuggets here and there. But I would say that even if you haven't read it, like you can still very much enjoy, or if you haven't played D&D, because like I haven't played D&D, but I enjoyed the dialogue of it versus like this is what's about to come up,
So it's something, if I read it, I'll be able to understand what's going on and not gonna
you're not gonna be like, and there's like, I like that the main character is half human, half orc, which usually isn't like the savior of it all. And I do love that. I thought that was a very interesting take. And he has like a band of half orcs at the beginning, so that was fun. So overall, very good book, very action packed, very but like you don't need to be a D&D fan to enjoy this, definitely not. So, but you get to have fun little nuggets if you are. So I read that, and that was very good. And then I'm currently reading it's over now, but last week some people on Instagram and TikTok did a trans rights readathon, where they tried to focus on books about or by trans authors due to a lot of the legislations that are out right now that are horrible. A reminder that trans people are human and they should have rights. So I am reading A Lady for Duke by Alexis Hall, and this is a treat of a book. It's a like Regency era novel where the main character is a transgender woman who faked her own death due to societal issues after she was in the war. And she so everyone thinks she died, including her best friend, who is in a deep bout of depression after he was injured in the war and he lost her. And her family does know that she transitioned and she did this, but he does not know for her own safety. But her sister-in-law insists that they go to the countryside to help him and his sister out of like his depression, and his sister find a way back into society. And so she's like back to seeing him again, and they were best friends and they were closer than ever. So guess what's gonna happen?
They're in love.
They're in love. And so I really enjoyed this book. I think it's wonderful. It's like very fun, but has like, you know, it does have some historical context. Although I will say that Alexis Hall said she updated language in the book to make sure that people didn't feel ostracized by the language in this novel. She did update it for modern day terms, which good for her. I agree with that.
I think that's a smart choice.
Yeah, I think that it would be bad to be like, I made sure this was historically accurate. It's like, please don't.
Yeah,
like, this is miserable to read.
It's harmful.
Yeah, like I think she made
like, okay,
right
we got a story, but is it the
right, like,
terrible, harmful stuff that we continue to deal with all the time? Do we need to read that?
Right. This is a romance novel. Like you can have like real world stakes to it of the time period without having the harmful language of the period.
Right.
So can't wait to finish that book, but it's been exciting. I had to take a break to read Fugitive Telemetry, Laura.
Fugitive Telemetry, the word that I have a hard time saying.
Telemetry.
I don't know why that word just like brain does not compute, does not want to
like sometimes
say
you want to say
I want to say like something that starts like tele.
Yeah, like telemetry. Like you want to
I want to say like telephone and
telemetry.
And that's literally like what I'm trying to say. It's like, no, brain, stop.
Say it the right way. I like that, and I'm gonna call it Fugitive Telemetry. From here on out. Telemetry. So this
Brains
is
are weird.
A murder mystery a la
Yes.
You and that terrible docuseries that Hannah tried to watch and couldn't.
Yeah, I finished it and I was like, this was a great little murder mystery of a Murderbot. I also had the thought, should there be just more of these where it's just Murderbot solving cases? Because I think that is a really interesting thing and could make for really good like novellas, and you could really change it up from book to book. But
should Murderbot go back in time and help Viviana Valentine solve a mystery? Yes, very much so. I would definitely want to read that. But yeah, I do like this like murder mystery aspect where Murderbot's just trying to solve everything and doing the case. And like, I love the way in this book, like Wells has to make sure that like Murderbot can't solve the mystery too easily, can't just review video and be like, oh, I've got this, but has to actually like investigate, which is a ton of fun. But yes, I very much like that Murderbot has to have fun little stops in how it can get to the mystery of it all, and it can't review videos and everything. And the fact that Murderbot is definitely like propaganda extreme and it's like, I just want to review everyone's data to figure out who did this, and it's like, no, there are rights on this world. And Murderbot's like, you're keeping me contained, guys. I thought that was very funny to see like some of Murderbot's old systems at play with some of its more modern stuff. So we fade in on a dead human lying on a deck on their side, half curled around.
I always just like picture this. I shouldn't say always. I was picturing this as Murderbot just being so annoyed, like the dead human is just lying there on the deck.
There are so many times I died during this book because Murderbot's just like, yeah, of course I can't say it like that. My brain would have been fried. And everyone's like, but you're also being really, really like not sensitive about the dead body.
You can't just call people targets.
Can you please call it the victim? And Murderbot's like, oh my God, if that's what you need, like
what an inconvenience. We all know who I'm talking about.
I have to go have an emotion about how annoyed I am. But Dr. Mensah has asked Murderbot to the scene to help find out who did the murder, because Preservation Ox doesn't have a ton of murders. They're pretty safe. They're pretty safe places. And so Murderbot also is like, because they don't have murders, they don't have very good security systems that will record everyone. So like there's no oversight. So it's technically like, because of how safe it is, it's a good place to commit a murder because it's easy to get away with it. But, they forget that they have a sec unit there to take everyone down. And so we also meet a senior security officer known as Dr. Inda. And Murderbot and Inda don't really get along. You find out like a couple months ago, Inda didn't really want Murderbot up on the station because of the security risk of Murderbot. And Murderbot's like, I totally get what she's saying, but I'm still very offended by it. Like, obviously, she's a security officer and she has to do this, but like, how dare she?
It's funny because it's like Murderbot is so annoyed because Murderbot is like, I'm more capable of doing this job than Inda is, but I get it because Inda is being reasonable. I am risking everyone's lives because I am a major target, but still, this is dumb.
And so like at first they don't have the human's ID. They later identify it as male, but they're just not sure. And it has like a very pattern type outfit on. And Murderbot's
like no fingerprints or anything, any kind of marks on it at all.
It's been wiped for any DNA that would be on it that could tell them like who attacked it. And the body has probably been moved. I love it because like Murderbot tries to say like, so the body's probably been moved. And then just like, yeah, we know. And Murderbot's like, well, I don't know what you know or don't know. So just like calm down. I'm just trying to help. But Dr. Mensah wants Inda to use Murderbot because Murderbot has more experience with this. And like the threat level of the station is literally at 7%. So Murderbot's like, yeah, you don't really know what you're doing. And like they even have issues because medical didn't get there because like they're like, well, the body's already dead. So
like, no, this is an emergency.
And they're like, well, can you please tell them that it's not dead of its own volition? Like, we need to get this body.
It was murdered, and there's a murderer on the loose. Like, we need somebody here now.
We need someone in here right now. And Mensah's just kind of like, Murderbot, please. And Murderbot keeps like, again, not identifying the body as a victim. It keeps calling it like the dead body. And everyone around them is like looking around like, do we say something? And Mensah's like literally looking at Murderbot like, could you just stop right now? And at one point, Murderbot's rude to Inda and Mensah's like, stop. And it's like, well, apparently this was so bad and egregious. I couldn't get like a private conversation. She had to voice it at me. But Murderbot has like a little bit of fear.
It's something where it's usually used this, it's you idiot tone or something like that.
And Murderbot is worried that this could be Grey Chris because this is before the events of the last novel. We should say that.
Right.
And
so standalone. It's a standalone, I found out. So the
nice.
full-length novel is a standalone.
Okay, well, it's before the standalone. And because of that, like we're still Mensah hasn't gone to get treatment yet. Murderbot is still looking for Grey Chris, and I believe this is before the last attack on Dr. Mensah's life. So Murderbot is paranoid, well within its rights. But Murderbot goes, do you think this is Grey Chris? And it's like, maybe. I don't know. It's an anomalous death. Maybe. What are the likelihoods? But Murderbot agrees to help with Inda, and Inda like kind of asks like, will you take direction? And Murderbot's like, sure, whatever. We find out also that Murderbot has a little bit of curtailment based on like Inda allowing it stay on the station because Inda wanted to put it on the planet for like risk assessment and everything. And Murderbot didn't want to go on planets because Murderbot doesn't like planets. And so Murderbot has two things holding it down. It cannot hack any of the security systems or like talk to the bots in like private station systems. It has to kind of be above the letter of the law, and it must kind of like listen. And I forget what the other hold is on it, but I know that it had two things it had to agree to.
That would have been two.
Oh, okay. Inda kind of sends Murderbot away during the investigation. It's like, you can leave now. And Murderbot's like, are you serious? Like, I'm incredibly useful here and I'm supposed to be here. And it goes away and it decides to like kind of it decides to start looking through some videos. It's like, oh, I know how to do an assessment. I will just go find where this person was staying because there's lots of records on who was staying and where, if I could go like talk to bots and ask them about things. And so Murderbot goes,
because there's got to be like some kind of video log of it somewhere.
Right. And so Murderbot goes into a like hostel type station. It kind of talks about the difference between this kind of station versus corporate stations, because it's like, oh, there's like temporary housing is very similar to long-term housing, and it's just like because they don't like unhoused people in preservation ox, and they respect that. So I forget the other thing that Murderbot had to do that I hated Inda for was Inda insisted on knowing Murderbot's name. And Murderbot was like highly offended by this. And both Mensa and Pinley were kind of like, couldn't you just share this? Is it that big of a deal? And Murderbot's like, it's a huge deal to me. Like, I gave my name to myself. This is private. And like, I did not give permission for this person to have it. And like, the person is just kind of like, it's a name, you know? And I do love this, where it's like, too many people who were just bored with the name and use a name, like it doesn't feel like a big deal. But to Murderbot, it's like, this is very private.
It's something very personal.
And I love that Pinley was like, I don't know, it kind of sounds worse to have Murderbot on this like station.
I was just gonna say, Pinley points out, like, is this the name we want to be talking or like saying a lot? I'm not sure.
I understand that we don't understand the privacy concerns, but we do understand that this isn't a good look for us. And so Murderbot kind of just gives the sec unit and adds its name and says that gender is not applicable. But Murderbot goes to one of the hostiles. You and I are just putting emphasis on all the wrong syllables right now. But it goes to a hostel, and it asks the bot who's kind of running it, who it notes is like, it's free, but it has like person. Oh, I forget what they call it.
Guardian.
A guardian. And it puts in parentheses owners. But it kind of asks the bot to like, it goes, hello, sec unit, what brings you here? And Murderbot's like, you don't have to pretend I'm a human. It's like, we don't have to do this. And so they kind of talk, and Murderbot asks, the bot's name is Tellus. So Murderbot asks Tellus to let it see into the rooms, and Tellus is kind of like, well, you're supposed to keep certain rooms private. I can't tell you if this person stayed here or not. But Murderbot's like, okay, but like if it's an empty room, I can look inside it, right? If like it's not being used. And Tellus is like, yeah, that loophole works for my parameters. And so Murderbot's like, cool. And so Tellus like brings Murderbot into all the empty rooms and opens the drawers so Murderbot can look at it, but doesn't get to like see too much of it. And it has to do it with its permission. Because Murderbot did know that the person was identified as like being a potential person who stayed there. So Murderbot does find the room because there's a scarf in there that is a similar style and pattern to what the person was wearing. So it did stay there. It also kind of discusses that like Murderbot has a theory that the person was probably dressed in like heavily styled clothing to probably blend in a little bit more, because like if you're trying to be concealed, you either want to look like everyone else,
or stand way out.
Yeah, and make it look like you're a traveler who doesn't care that you're dressed a certain way. And
I have never thought about this before. It's so true.
Oh, like, yeah.
The people that wear like something that totally does not fit with the norm of the area or whatever, they do blend in so well. It's especially amazing.
When you have like a lot of people who are traveling there who like want to travel there because it's a little bit more accessible. And so it's just like, yeah, it just looks like someone who's like a tourist, and you're not going to pay attention to a tourist because you don't really care. And Inda is like so frustrated when Murderbot points it out, and like it's like Inda is going in like a very human way where it's like where she's like, well, then we should be able to find out where she purchased or where this person purchased these clothes. And Murderbot's like, probably not. I mean, you could just go to a better mall and order whatever print you want. Like
that's what I did.
Yeah. And Murderbot's like, come on. And Inda's like, oh my gosh, this is like recycled unit clothing, so they could just do that. And so Inda doesn't like that Murderbot's like lapping Inda, and Murderbot's like, this is my literal job. Calm down. So
I know what I'm doing.
But Murderbot is able to identify who was staying in the room. And the person's name is Lutrin, and Lutrin is male, so we will use he, him pronouns for Lutrin. And so Murderbot is also like sending drones out because it's like, okay, well, I can't hack into systems, but I can send my drones out to like look at different things. And And so it's kind of looking at different drone systems. It's asking about, and it starts to decide, like, now that it's identified Lutrin, that it's going to try to identify what ship he was on. However, Murderbot cannot. And so instead it like starts doing background assessments on like, okay, well, let me look at all the systems and look at all the ships that came in and look for any anomalies within them, because if there's an anomaly, then that's probably the one Lutrin was on, since he's not really in any of these systems. And so Murderbot finds a transport connection and it pings back readily, but it does have like a weird hole in its information. There's enough to identify it as a passenger transport whose home destination was a small hub station outside the corporation rim. It does have like a regular route on preservation, carrying cargo and passengers, but like it doesn't really have any other information. And Murderbot deduces that Lutrin was probably the person who was on it and using it, because it doesn't have enough information in the anomaly systems. So Murderbot decides it wants to break in, but it can't do it alone. So it goes, I need someone who believes in me so much that they're willing to get on board with this, and someone who doesn't believe in me enough but knows what they're doing. I know
wonder who that could be.
And it's like, I called both of them, and I was like, I was like, oh, we're gonna see Grothin in this book. Like immediately when it was like, I need someone who doesn't trust me, and I'm like, oh, Grothin's making a cameo.
It's so funny because when Murderbot was saying that, I was like, I know exactly who it's talking about. It's going to bring in Grothin. He is not going to be too thrilled to be there.
Cut to Grothin, who's not too thrilled to be there. And Grothin and Rothy is like, Rothy's like, are you sure you shouldn't call station security? And Murderbot was like, well, they told me to like beat it. So yeah. And it's like, what exactly did they say? And it was like, they said, we'll call you if we need you.
Yeah. And then Grothin's like, I'm not sure if you're being passive aggressive or not.
He goes, I don't know if you're being passive aggressive or willfully obtuse. And it's like, both.
He was right about the passive aggressive thing. He was right about the passive aggressive thing.
And it's like, but he is standing where I'm asking him to. So he's following directions. So I can't be too upset with him. But so they have Rothy break into the place, and Grothin's like, this is really ill-advised. Why are we doing this? And they smell something bad upon entering, and they find out that this was definitely where Luton was murdered. And so Murderbot kind of does a quick scan, and it's like, well, now you can call station security. And station security is like so bad that Murderbot like got ahead of them. And they're kind of like, how did you do this? And Murderbot was like, well, I just looked for information. And it's like, how long did that take you? And Murderbot's like, not long. Like, this isn't that difficult. And people are like questioning whether this was an opportunity killing. And it's like, when a human kills another human just because they can, it's like a really bad thing. So let's hope not.
Right.
And so Murderbot also meets this other investigator, Aelin, who Murderbot's like, oh, they're like high security. I wonder how they got that title. And later Murderbot's like, oh God, they have to mediate between people. That's out. And it's like horrified at the thought of having to mediate between people. And so they're kind of asking Murderbot different questions about like, well, this feels like private security with its own agenda. And Murderbot's like, I'm not doing anything I shouldn't be. Like, I'm just doing my job.
Right.
And Murderbot and Inda at one point is like, hey, Murderbot, if you wanted to dispose of a body, how could you do it without it being found? And Murderbot's like, I'm not your personal Google machine. Like,
I know.
You can't just ask me these questions. And it goes, if I told you, then you might find all the bodies I've already disposed of. And
which is hilarious.
And Rothy is like, it's joking. It's joking. It's like, no one thinks Murderbot can have a sense of humor, but Murderbot is like the pettiest queen in the whole world.
My gosh. Murderbot does have like the perfect sarcastic quips ever.
Well, especially for like, because everyone expects Murderbots to be like, or sec units to be like incredibly like bland, no joking.
Just like immediately respond with a Google type response.
Exactly. And Murderbot's just kind of like, no, I'm fun. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, you keep asking me stupid questions. I'm going to give you a stupid answer. Like, and so, Karathan is kind of like pinging it, and it's like, you could just show them where and when this person was being killed, and like you could give them the right answer, and then this conversation would be done. And Murderbot's like, yeah, he's right. I misdirected in the wrong direction. And I made myself.
I overdid it. And I kind of look bad now.
I overcorrected, and I immediately regret what I did. And so it like looks at the relevant data. Oh, and they ask like, where were you when this person was murdered? And Murderbot like sends like, yeah, I was in a room with Mensa. Like, I definitely didn't do this. And so we now know Murderbot isn't the murderer, and it's like, yeah, duh. Right. And so they're looking at different information. Inda is like good to send Murderbot some information they have from a report. And Rathi goes, can I see too? And she's like, no.
Inda's like, no, you can't see it.
You can't.
He's trying so hard.
I know, but I love it because he's just like, and I'm here too. Like, and I'll stay out of your way.
You're doing a great job.
Can I see? And it's like, no, you're a civilian. But they send Murderbot like a video of the fact that like the body was killed here. They don't have any information on who was on the facility or off of it. And they just ordered this like delivery cart to come pick up the body and drop it where they wanted it to. And Murderbot's like, okay, so like it could have used like espionage tools. It had like surveillance, like something happened where it hacked our system. So it covered up its tracks. And
so they're like, who called for this cart to move it?
Yeah.
Like, that's what we need to be looking for.
So they decide to go look at that. And is like, take sec unit. Murderbot's like, yeah, I was surprised too.
It's like, wow, I'm being included in this now. Okay.
And then in the next chapter, it says, Aelin made it clear Rathi and Garathan were not invited. So they kind of go off, and we start looking at different ships and different like areas to see if these political entities, if there's other like ships or other hatches that have similar issues with them.
Yeah, they're at the docks, and they're like looking in these cargo sections for modules that maybe aren't quite like the others.
And they do get a ping about one ship, which was very confusing because Luton was the person who was killed, but then they have a docking number and a Lalo registry name.
Yeah, Lutrin is the person
who
was killed, and then it's the Lalo is the name.
I'm just saying they're throwing a lot of L names at me, and it's a lot for me.
It's two. That's a lot.
Listen, Lutrin and Lalo, like L names are not that like common. I know I'm talking to a Laura.
I am named Laura, so you're disproving your own point.
Okay, just because I'm talking to one L name doesn't mean like there's a million Laura. Like, I'm sorry that Laura is a common name, but like
it is very common. Remember, so is Lauren and Lily.
But like I'm just saying, it was just Lutrin and Lalo are two very individualized names. So in my mind, I can skim over an L name and know we're talking about one thing, and they just made my job a whole lot harder. I had to focus, and let me tell you, I often didn't. So they found this Lalo registry name for one of the docking places, and it has like, there's no bot pilot on there. There's no information that Murderbot can get to, so it's frustrated. And so they go to look in on things, and they take this other person called Tiffany and a bot named Balin. And Murderbot is very frustrated with Balin because it's like the bot just stands there. It doesn't do anything. Like, this is so annoying, guys. How are you guys not annoyed by this? And so I
love that Murderbot like has all these frustrations with other constructs, but it's just like, you guys are useless.
Why are you just standing there? Have a personality.
At least do something.
And so
I also love too when they like somebody addresses Balin. Murderbot's like, Who is? Oh, got it. It's
who are you talking? Oh my gosh. It's definitely that situation in the TV shows where they're like talking and it's like, oh my gosh, make a noise or something.
right.
And so they go to the ship area with the Lalo, and they take the people, and the special agent Aylin is like, I need to get on that ship. And so she goes in with herself and one other person alone, and Murderbot is like, you've got to be effing kidding me. I should be in there with you. Come on.
It's like risk assessment spike.
And it's like, and it also like doesn't move fast enough. So she's just like, okay, you coming with me, and walks in and the door closes, and Murderbot's like, dang it. My risk assessment spiked. This is not good. And so Murderbot's kind of standing out there with Farid and Tiffany, just kind of talking to them a little bit. They're like looking at Murderbot, giving it the side eye. And Murderbot is kind of like, okay, I'm going to do something. I'm going to do something and try to ping it. So it tries to like get through some information, and it hears that Aylin is sending out a security like distress signal.
Right.
And so Murderbot also like asks Balin like, hey, are you communicating with her right now? And it's like, no. And Murderbot's like, well, this is very helpful. And so Murderbot tells them that it needs to break in. It does, and there are people who try to fire on Aylin and the other person on the ship with her, Gamilla. And Murderbot like gets the weapons away from them. They call for assistance, and like Murderbot's like, target 1, target 2, target 3, target 4.
This is what gets confusing to me. The name's not so confusing, but all these different targets, because then I was like trying to figure out like how many people are in there. Is it 6 or were there just 4? Because I'm like, okay, that's what confuses me, is Murderbot just referring to everyone as like target, 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 target. And I'm like, how many are there?
Here's the problem with me, and this is Hannah's toxic trait. If you tell me there are 4 targets, I'll just continue to read like they're one huge unit until a couple stand out. So then it got to like target 4 and target 2, I think were the main players. There are more than that.
This is like 4 additional targets.
Yeah, but like when they're talking, they really only talk to like target 2, 4, and 3, I think. And so I was like, oh, I can keep those in check. Like everyone else is just doing something in the background. It doesn't matter.
And I guess they don't become like essential parts of the plot, but it just gets confusing to me.
Shocking. None of the targets are the murderer, guys.
Right.
So they're useless. So they're like yelling about the security people trying to take their ship. And it's really funny because they're like, you attacked a security officer, and they're like, we didn't know you were security. We thought you were trying to apprehend our ship. You brought a sec unit. And Murderbot's like, I was outside. Try again. And they're like, dang it.
You didn't know that I was here, but okay.
That's a lie. I caught you in it, and so now you're a liar. So they like apprehend them, and you find out that like targets. Murderbot's really frustrating because like, I just want to question these people, and we have to do things like read them their rights and take them to a secondary location for questioning. And so Murderbot's like listening, and this is such a funny interrogation because like there's like a million people doing these interviews, but they're also all listening in on each other's interviews and having secondary conversations. So there are moments where like one of the interrogators will just like look off into the distance and only listen to their feed, and the poor target has to sit there like awkwardly like, so what's going on?
I think that's something that's been happening throughout all of the books though, and it just becomes more pointed in this one where they're all just like standing there talking to each other and no one else knows what's happening.
I know, it's just so funny because there's like a scene where one of them is like, fence talking, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like, it's just so
Wells
funny
is definitely leaning into the humor of that.
Yeah, it's very funny. So they are all being questioned, and Murderbot realizes there's like a security conversation that's happening without it, and it's like, I wasn't let on there. It's so upset about it. And so it like will start being like, hey, it's me, ask them about this. And, like, I loved this section so much.
Amazing.
And one of them is kind of talking, it's like a little bit more less well spoken, and it's like, it's a Slytherin sec unit, you pussers. How stupid are you? And Murderbot is like, you're the one who got yourself body slammed in sedation detention. And it's like, I didn't think
So
sec
how
units were allowed
about
to
you're
talk
dumb?
back. And it's like, I didn't think sec units could talk back. And Murderbot's like, whatever, I don't care. That sounds like none of my business. And so
then Aylin's like annoyed because it's just like, get out of here. Get them out of here, because we do not need them arguing with sec unit.
So, and Murderbot like walks into a room thinking it's going to a different questioning one, and it's like, oh, this is empty. Like, he gets so upset. And they look at the ship's information. They realize that they've never visited a corporate dock. They like the data is just kind of showing a little bit weird information. Mm-hmm. So they start talking to them. And they also have like some information coming in from Pin Lee about like possible fraud and smuggling investigations to go along with the murder. So they're all kind of checking in with each other on things that are the issues that are going on. But through the talking, one of the targets, Target 4, is kind of a little bit more into complaining and telling them everything they want to know.
And basically, if you're talking about like loose lips sink ships, this
it's the loosest of lips. Well, and they all seem to have like very similar information that tells you that they've gotten their stories straight. But it's also like Target 4 is too stupid to remember the story after 3 times. And so they kind of keep going in on him, going in on the person. And they ask about Lutrin. They show a picture of him, but none of them recognize him. And then they name him and they're all like, shit. And they're like, so you do know him? And Target 5 is like, no. Maybe. And so they also find out that there's a bunch of people who came off the ship who are no longer available on the station. So they know that these people are wandering around somewhere. And they're like, were those people supposed to be with Lutrin? And they're all kind of like, and Target 4 is like, yeah. And so you find out that they're from this corporate station called Brerhar Walhan. I'm going to call him Bear Wallen because that is easier for me than Brehar Wallen. But Bear Wallen. And they're like, and someone was like, oh, they're smuggling people off of this station.
Yeah,
and
you find out was smuggling people.
They're smuggling people because this is a very long going station. It's like a mining corporation where people are contract workers, aka slaves. And they've been there long enough that like their grandchildren are still working there. And so those people should not be involved with the contract, but they are. And so they're trying
because the Target Force says something like, yeah, they've got kids in there and they've been in those mines like so long that they've got kids that are older than me.
And so they're trying to get these people off of that station. And everyone's kind of like, oh, they're actually like good people. And I love this because they go, the children aren't being allowed to leave. They're being born into slavery. And Target 4 goes, I know, penis move, right?
Amazing.
And so Target 5 goes, it's he's telling you everything. And they're like, yes, Target 4 is telling us everything. And Target 5 goes, he has a head injury. And Aelin goes, he seems perfectly lucid. But they find out that Lutrin was the person who usually picked up the people and moved them to the next station. So the fact that he's dead and the people are missing says that someone is involved, and it's probably Bear Wallen who took all those people and murdered Lutrin.
The chances are over 85% that it's somebody from Brehar Wallen.
And so Murderbot starts like looking at all the video surveillance that are allowed to look at for these people, and they just suddenly like disappear off the face of the planet. Murderbot's like, they must have hacked into the system, but it can't find where the hacking happened. And there's no like body type matching to anyone else, so they didn't change clothes to like keep things under wraps. So there are huge issues. Oh, and when the murder happened, they did lock down the entire station, so no one's been able to leave yet. That's an important part of what's about to come up next, Hannah. I do bad at storytelling sometimes. but so Murderbot is like, hey, I need to like get into the security system because I can do something similar to what I did before, which is like look at anomalies on different ships to see like if everything's there that should be there. And they're not taking on more than they should have. And like,
Right.
and Inda is like, well, how long would you need that access? And Murderbot's like, I don't know, 5 minutes. And it's like, I should need less.
It wouldn't take that long, but I just wanted to make it seem like I was trying.
It's just like what every person does who asks for another week to make sure you think a project is way harder than it has to be.
And also it's like Murderbot says something like, I figured I wouldn't need that much time, but at least if I had 5 minutes, that would give me a little time to snoop around. So
yeah. Well, and then it's like, it actually ended up taking me 6 minutes because people were talking to me. Like, it's so frustrating.
I hadn't been distracted.
I put my trophy here if I had
one.
So Inda does approve having a little bit of time to look through the security system. They don't find any signs of body disposal other than Lutrin, but they do find Murderbot is able to find a ship that has a docking system pretty much locked to it, which Murderbot knows that like doesn't usually have enough air. And that's a huge issue because these people need to breathe. And they will be out in space. So Murderbot recognizes like these people are being treated like less than human. And it realizes that it needs to get on board, but it doesn't trust the security system to get them there without the people who are on the ship letting go of this unit. And that would be really bad, pretty much. It's just not good. At one point, they're also like looking through the ship and they ask Murderbot to go into an area because one of the bots can't fit in it. And they're like, Jolly Baby can't fit. And Murderbot's like, please tell me your name.
Its name is not Jolly Baby, is it? And then like they all start saying, the other bots keep saying, oh, its name is Jolly Baby. Its name is Jolly Baby. And then finally it like gets an ID that its name is not Jolly Baby. And it's like, oh, I appreciate that they're in on the joke.
But first, Jolly Baby sends it an ID equals Jolly Baby, and Murderbot's like, oh my God, this is dehumanizing. I hate that we're dehumanizing ourselves. And then Jolly Baby is like, previous message equals joke, and it's actual ID. And it goes, so it was a stupid private joke. I don't think that made it any better.
Amazing. That part had me cackling.
And it says that they kind of wanted to ask about like Balin bringing over one of the like hauling units that could get into the area that Murderbot can't get into.
Yeah, and this is like, Balin can't lift heavy things. It's like, I can't lift heavy things. Well, fuck Balin then.
It goes, Balin not equal cargo hauler, Balin equal cargo management. And it's like, it manages the cargo. And so they're like,
it's basically like, at the point with Balin where it's like, what do you do?
What is your purpose? And so they find out that the module is missing around this time, and Murderbot decides it has to get up there, but it has to do it secretly. So it goes onto one of the like older decks that you had people like brought to preservation, pretty much, that they usually have for like, oh, look at these like old technologies that we have. And Murderbot is like, they have this place running with old technology to be like, look at what we used to do. And it's like mocking their like respect for history. And Murderbot, before it gets on it, it does get into Mensa's private office because it thinks that the issues are coming from inside Preservation Ox, and there isn't a hack system. There is someone on the inside helping these people get the people off the module and everything. And so Inda's like, I don't believe that. Like, I have a good security thing. But Murderbot is able to convince Inda, and it kind of comes out that Inda thought Murderbot was likely the person who killed Lutrin, because Inda thought it might have been a Grey Chris agent, and Murderbot would have no qualms about murdering a Grey Chris agent. Murderbot's kind of like, yeah, I can't say I wouldn't do that because I definitely would do that.
Probably would have done that.
Yeah.
Oops.
So, but that's not what happened here. So they kind of go through everything. Murderbot does go onto the old system, and it like has to call Rothi and Grothin, and it's like, hey, what's a good way? What's like a good evac suit? An olden technology, and they're like, well, we have these bags that we used to transport ourselves in, and so Murderbot like
I guess that'll work.
Gets in one of the bags, and I was like, this is very weird. I miss evac suits, and it transfers itself onto the module, and opens it up, and like all these people are on there. They're freaking out because Murderbot just like opened something into space, and it's like, you're fine, calm down. But they kind of point to the fact that there is a videotaping them. So Murderbot knows that they're being watched by the people in the ship. And so it's under the danger of having, being like cast out into space at any moment if they really wanted to cover their tracks that they were kidnapping a bunch of people who didn't want to be kidnapped. And so Murderbot's kind of like, I have to get you all off the ship now. It notes that there's only like 6 to the bag that they can send off at one point.
So they pick like, I think don't they pick like the younger people to go?
They do 3 children and 3 adults so that there can be some supervision. And they keep saying that like there's a sec unit on board, and Murderbot's like, I didn't hear one. Like, what are you talking about?
Well, because it's worried that like if they found out that it's the sec unit, that they're gonna be like terrified and not want to comply with what it's trying to do.
Right. And so it's trying to hide the fact that it's a sec unit. It's trying to like get everyone off the ship. And it does note that like there is a sec system on board, but it like puts that into sleep mode along with the bot pilot. So it now has control over the ship. But all of a sudden the door to the ship opens, and there's a person in like armor that they mistook for a sec unit. And it's trying to disable the module and let it go into deep space. So Murderbot's like, change of plans. We can't use this bag system to get you all off here safely. We're going to storm the ship and take control. And so Murderbot fights with the person in the security suit, and it is able to disable the suit to keep it like locked up. And then it storms the ship, and it finds out that these are all bounty hunters who were capturing these people to bring them back to the colony to keep them enslaved. So awesome.
Terrible.
So Murderbot stops them, and it's like, hey, contract slavery is illegal on Preservation Aux. So like, you have refugee status here. We can't take you back, because a lot of the humans think that they're going to collect the bounty, like Preservation Aux would collect the bounty, which sucks, because like this is just showing that like they could have asked for refugee status immediately when they got here, but they were like trying to keep them safe, and it made them in more danger. So they do storm the ship. Murderbot's able to stop the ship from moving, and it's able to get everyone. Well,
it gets them in the bag, right?
It gets some people in the bag, but they end up having to storm the ship because they were trying to get the module off.
Because I thought that at this point that there were some of them that are just getting in the bag, but maybe
I think that Murderbot did send the first 6 out in the bag, but it still had others, and it like didn't have time to get them all into the bag and off the ship. So they did have to storm the ship and stop them from the inside. And so Murderbot does like stop the humans who were hostile and gets like the ship locked down until their intervention team can board.
It had us over there, and it's like, I'm gonna go back for the others, stay here, and then it gets hit from behind.
Oh, well, so sorry. It gets them all on board, and it's like going to get them on board, and one of them shoots Murderbot in the neck, because they figured out that Murderbot was a sec unit, and they were scared that Murderbot was there to help take the bounty and take them back. So they shot at Murderbot because they thought Murderbot was just another person trying to take them away. And so they were just trying to stop them before that. So, but it barely hurt Murderbot, and Murderbot just like took the hostile weapon away from the human that it just saved, and like
it just like
stopped.
Whips around. I was like, no.
Yeah. And so then it like locks down the entire ship, gets the intervention team boarded, and has the medical unit like fix the back of its neck, because it's like, it's fine, but it looks weird. And people come on and they're like, you were shot? And it's like, you were shot? And she goes, and Murderbot goes, what gave it away? It feels very old school, like action movie where like everyone runs on board and Murderbot's just sitting there getting fixed. And it's like, I'm fine. And so Murderbot's like, my short-term contract is completed. And does like, really? Do you know who killed Lutrin? And Murderbot's like,
who?
Murderbot's like, I forgot about my original objective in all this mess. And Murderbot's like, who? And does like, I was asking you. And Murderbot's kind of like, well, the hostiles will know who did it. And does like, we asked them and they don't know. We want to find the traitor who was involved before they do any more damage. Right. And Murderbot's like, well, I want that too. And it's like, well, you need a surveillance audit. And it's like you take all the data available during the time frame when the incident occurred, not just from Port Authority, but from all of them, and see who wasn't doing like other things at the time to reduce the suspect pool. Because there will be like a gap in information when the transport was hacked, when Lutrin, like when someone got on board the ship. And Murderbot and does like, well, how long will that take you? And it's like, well, a few hours and some extra storage space. And so they have to get like a court order pretty much to allow them to do this. And Murderbot's kind of like talking to Mensa, telling her that like, oh, this wasn't great, Chris. And Pinley's general counsel is coming back. So there's a ton of information going. And Murderbot was like, I need to let them know I was still alive, because what I really needed to do was stand here and watch the beginning of episode 132 of Sanctuary.
Amazing.
And so Murderbot kind of starts looking into different stuff, and then it realizes that it has an idea, and she's like, well, your last one didn't work out too badly, so why not? Murderbot decides that they need a little bit of bait to send to one of the people who is going to where the person who's working inside from preservation can go. Well,
and it wants to send out that chatty target.
Yeah. and just like, no, the chatty target will be terrible as bait. They're going to talk too much. And they're going to be a distraction. And like,
they're going to talk to everyone.
And they're going to let go that they're definitely bait right now. So Inda chooses like Human 3 to go out, and because Human 3 seems to kind of know what they're doing, but be wild enough that like the preservation person would want to take them out.
Because that's the one that thought that the armored person was the sec unit and was like, get him.
And that human also is like, I'll help you, but you got a sec unit here. It's probably passing tales to Brer Wallen. And they're like, that's not how sec units work. And so and just like, the sec unit got you out of the module. You want to stay in it? And like it's coming with a tug. You can hop back in. And it's like, no, we're not corporates. We have laws. People. And just like, we're not going to put people back in a unit because we understand that they've experienced lots of trauma and that would be rude to threaten them. And so they decide to use that person as bait, and they're sending them out, and just like, that part's done. I just got a feed message from Aylin. She wants you over in the security office. Their spotter team will be bringing Mish with them, and I'll meet you there. And Murderbot's kind of like, oh, my threat assessment spiked. That's weird. And it's like, so you're staying here? And it's like, not that you have a right to ask, but I need to go to the merchant docks and try to stand down the search team. And Murderbot's like, take some people with you. Like, we're in danger here. And so Murderbot waits long enough to make sure that Inda will take security with her. And it's kind of quiet, and it splits off to cross the public docks towards the security office. And it kind of feels like, this is really creepy. I don't love this. I should be fine. But, and it kind of thinks about the fact that like they knew Lutrin had arranged for his module to be launched from the merchant docks and directed toward the public docks and his transport. We knew somebody inside Port Authority had redirected it towards the bounty chaser's ship. The bot pilot picked up the module just like a raider locked into an unarmed ship. No cargo bot needed, but Lutrin's transport should have had a cargo bot assigned to help attach the module. So it kind of realizes that there's something hinky going on in there. Right. And the stations were under kind of privacy lock, so it ran a query, and then it gets distracted. But there are drones above it looking at a spherical perimeter, and someone tries to shove a giant machine down on Murderbot that could have killed it, and it's able to get out of the way. And so it like is freaking out that like someone tried to throw a crane on it, because that definitely would have killed it. And it sends an alert code to Aylin to kind of tell it like, hey, this just happened. And Aylin says it has a like do not disturb message going on.
So it's like, great, it's Aylin.
And so then Murderbot calls Feyred to see if Aylin had like And it's like, hey, did Aylin send a feed message to Inda telling me to meet her in the security station? It's like, I don't know, maybe she's not here and she's off her feed for a quick break. It took forever to talk to refugees out of the colony ship. And Murderbot's kind of like, okay, we'll make sure Aylin's all right, because like if she's not, she's definitely involved. And Murderbot is like, oh my gosh, I make everything so complicated. This is bad. Like, it's probably very simple. Someone spoofed Aylin's ID, and it's like, did you tell Supervisor Gamilla about the trap that was set for me? And it's like, no, of course not. I told her we needed a Port Authority data dump. I had to. She had to authorize the transfer to temp storage. It can't be here. We grew up together. Or they're like, it can't be Gamilla. We grew up together. Gamilla is one of the supervisors who's been like helping with this. And Murderbot's kind of like, nope, but I know who it is. So Murderbot goes to the Port Authority office. It goes in, it goes through to set up its big standoff, and it walks up to Gamilla, pulls out a projectile weapon and says, run. Gamilla runs out of the room, and Baylan is in the room, standing at the window, pretending to be dormant. And so Murderbot says, the humans think you're hacked, but we both know that's not true. And Baylan says, would it make a difference if I were hacked? Then it launched a code attack to slam through Murderbot's wall and hit its feed. But Murderbot was extending a limb at high speed right towards, or at the same instant, it extended a limb at high speed right towards my chest. And Murderbot's like, that's a nice try, but deflected the code attack and stepped to the side. And so Murderbot starts fighting with it, hoping that it would trick it. But I had a bad feeling it wouldn't. It still needed to confirm a working theory. Baylan's record shows that it came onto Preservation Station for 43.7 local planetary years, and its original guardian had been a Port Authority supervisor at the time, who had taken it on when Baylan jumped ship from a corporate cargo transport and asked for refugee. It had been the first and only bot to do that, which, you know, should have told the humans something.
You're just so trusting on
Preservation. I know. Well, and they're just like, of course you'd want to get away from that. So they figured that Baylan was just a general purpose bot, and it had been, but Baylan had to fly under the surface because it never requested maintenance, because it then they would figure out that it had been fitted with military grade armor under its outer body. So Baylan is a combat unit that had been hiding for years, and Brer Wallen had figured out a way to get to its access codes to turn it on and start it working for all of them. So Murderbot's kind of like, I made some mistakes with not realizing it. And it says, I wanted to provoke it into reacting. And of course it did, because it was a bot and it made mistakes, like trying to kill me when it realizes the database we were building was going to show an anomalous exit and re-entry through one of the outer station airlocks. So it came after Murderbot, because Murderbot would have been able to figure out what Baylan had done. And so it didn't, it has to fight with Baylan, like, and then it asks Jolly Baby about Baylan and like where its hard address is, and it goes, Baylan off network, intruder destroyed Baylan. And it's like, oh, I thought it meant me, but nope, it was actually saying that Baylan had dropped its wall and its designation as a combat bot was now open to the feed. So Baylan no longer exists in the form of, and the combat bot has taken over. And so it kind of talks about like how its mission had depended on stealth, but suddenly its mission was over because it no longer needed to be stealthy. It had been discovered. So
like all the other bots, they are like under the assumption that the combat bot killed Baylan.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But in fact, like by Murderbot discovering that who Baylan was, it like gets at its pure essence, and so now its mission is over, so it pretty much goes into like a stasis mode, because it's like, okay, I'm done, this was my mission.
Well, and it's something like it could try to fight us all, but like one combat bot between all of these other cargo bots and me, I don't think it would have even worked out.
Right. And so Murderbot is kind of now sitting on the platform, like the mystery is over. It talks to Mensa, Mensa asks if Murderbot's okay, and it's like, yeah, totally, which is true, but not. And then they're trying to get Murderbot to like hang out with the crew, and they're like, why don't you come to the hotel when you're done and we'll do something fun? And Murderbot's like, I hate fun. And they're like, well, we'll go see an opening night of a new musical theater. And Murderbot's like, that's actually really tempting. And so it decides to go do that. Inda kind of talks about it, and it's like, good to see you in one piece. They're like talking about the assumptions they made that someone had like come from the inside of the station instead of outside. You know, there's like a lot of stuff going on. They're kind
It's
of
just
apologizing.
them replaying the case.
Replaying. And then Inda is like, Murderbot's like, hey, I'm still tying up all loose ends so that nothing's left to the imagination. Inda's like, that's probably for the best. And it's like, hey, I wasn't the one who sent photos of you to the news streams, because at the beginning we found out that Murderbot thinks Inda sent pictures of it to the news streams, which puts everyone in danger because Murderbot had been pretty careful about like getting that stuff out. And Murderbot like feels some type of way about that. And Inda's like, I wouldn't have used it like that. If we have to fight about Mensa's security, we'll fight, but I won't undermine you, since we are actually both on the same side. Right. And Murderbot's like, I hate that that's true, you know, and Murderbot's kind of uncomfortable. And Inda's like, hey, I'll pay you for this. I assume you're open to another contract the next time something weird happens. And Murderbot goes, only if it's really weird.
It's really weird.
And that is the end of this plot, which was beautiful. I really enjoyed this.
I thought this was like a nice change of pace. I think that the full-length novel had us both kind of like, this wasn't as good, but it was still okay. And then this one was like, okay, good. We're back on track here.
And it feels good to like be kind of back to the novella format, where it's just like, and to do something like murder mystery. I think that that's pretty new for Martha.
Unique.
Yeah, it's like a very unique place for Murderbot to be. And so I very much enjoyed this book. I thought it was a ton of fun. All hail Murderbot, the best investigator private eye that we've ever seen.
Murderbot is the best.
But yes, guys, join us next week to discuss the plot, characters, and then guys, we're gonna have some new stuff down the line. Like next week is the penultimate episode, but we will take a small break in between that and our season finale for Murderbot, where we shut the books for a couple of months before the next one comes out. We will be covering that April 5th, and then we have a special guest interview the week after. And then we will have our season finale, and then guys, we start Indie Mission.
Miss Percy's Pocket Guide.
Miss Percy's Pocket Guide to the Care and Feeding of British Dragons by Quenby Olson. Cannot wait to do that. We will be hosting a giveaway for the book, as we always do.
Yay.
And we will be spending a month covering the plot and characters and themes of that novel. We cannot wait. This book looks so adorable.
It looks so cute.
I can't wait to read it. And we're just very, very, very excited. So make sure you guys are getting your copy of that now. And we will also be covering, I believe, if we can make it work, we will also be covering at some point very soon, Sean Gibson's The Part About the Dragon Was Mostly True, for a special author interview. Because he is having a re-release of his book coming out in hard copy. So he's agreed to come on and talk to us about it, because we both have recently read it, or will have read it, because I have not read it quite yet, but will. So we'll be doing that. Make sure you're also following our blog for all the rest of the Indie Mission submissions. Similar to Laura's going to give us a review of Jonathan Nevair's book, and I'm sure she will write one about the Delve. And then, you know, we're so excited that this month of March, we got to highlight all the indie authors that we got to read, a couple indie books that have been on our TBRs for so long. So make sure you're checking out all those reviews, because it really helps. Make sure you're buying and rating and reviewing books. If you're not super into rating on Goodreads, download an account simply for indie authors, because it makes all the difference. Like, some of these books only have like 12 reviews, some of them only have 60 reviews, and so like every little bit helps.
They all help.
They all
or
helps.
On Amazon.
Yes, definitely rate on Amazon, because lots of people find these through like Kindle purchases. So it's always helpful to do that. So make sure you're doing all those things. And then while you're at it, rate, review, and subscribe to us. Rating, reviewing, and subscribing is hugely helpful. You can also like add us on Patreon if you wanted. We have an episode out yesterday, I believe, for the Teen Beach movie on Patreon.
Beach movie.
We reviewed it with our good friend of Ronnie Reads Regularly. So that is huge. And we're just really excited for all of this. It's an episode called Dead Mom Salsa, so everyone should enjoy that. Where we made a joke that Hannah has to work at A&W Root Beer because her mother did, because it's a rule that you must do everything your dead mom does.
Yes.
So make sure you guys join that. Yeah, we've just got a lot of cool stuff for you. We have all of the content. So just, enjoy it and let us know.
Thanks for participating. Thanks for listening.
Yes.
We really appreciate it.
I know, we do really appreciate it. And join us next week to cover the plots or the theme and characters of Fugitive Telemetry.
I said it right that time.
And I said it wrong. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.